Hello there, dear viewers. It is I, Flickarity, editing Flickarity, technically. I did an intro for this video, and it was so long. I've been sitting here editing it, and I haven't even got to the tutorial yet. I rant way too much. So I've decided if I'm really keen, I'll probably make a second video, something like along the lines of why you should make a website. So I'm gonna make that a separate video. I've written up a little list here of things that are just the main points, the things that you actually need to know in order to watch this video. What you need to know about this tutorial. Sorry the video size is weird. I'm recording on my second monitor, which is smaller, for reasons, just trust me. I will leave links to a few resources in the description. You don't need to worry about hosting your site online to follow this tutorial. You can build and experiment with making a website offline. That's literally all I do in this video. It's all on my computer. You don't need to think about a hosting service. This is all just for fun, just to see, you know, if you're new to like website making and HTML and all that, just some basic tips to help you start experimenting with that. And if it's really something that you're into, then you might want to look into hosting services so you can actually put your work online. But I won't go over that because that's a whole other topic of conversation, and also one that I'm not really able to speak on because I have such little experience with hosting services. This is a very basic tutorial for HTML and CSS. I intend to make more videos about this in the future, so yeah, very much. You probably won't be building a website with this, but you will definitely have some very basic knowledge to help make the rest of the process a bit easier, I suppose. I've tried to go over basically the stuff I use most often when I'm building my site, but there is so much more. There is so much more to learn, and I definitely intend to come back and make more videos if I have the time and such. And finally, I'm not an expert. I do not know what I'm doing. I'm self-taught, and this is all for fun. So definitely, if anyone's more experienced or sees any mistakes I make in this video, I'm definitely unsure about a lot of what I say, and you'll see that in this video. So, you know, if you know more than me and you spot any mistakes, feel free to leave a comment. If you want any help with anything, feel free to leave a comment. I will try my best to help out. And of course, if I'm corrected on anything, in the next couple of videos, I will mention that. But I think that's basically all of it. Regardless, this tutorial is still very long, so, you know, get up, take breaks, yeah, look after yourself. And I hope this tutorial is helpful. Anyway, back to past me, who had just finished ranting for half an hour. Hope you enjoy. So ignore kind of what's going on in the background here. We're going to pretend you haven't opened up your browser or anything. What you're going to need for this tutorial is you can code in basically anything. If you really wanted to, you could write this out in Notepad, but it's going to be helpful for you if you get a actual like coding program thing. I used to use Visual Studio Code, and now I use brackets. This tutorial I'll be using this live preview button here. That's going to be very helpful because you're going to be able to actually see what you're coding as you're coding it. What we're going to do is, again, pretend this isn't here. We're going to go File and New. Let's save this. So I've gone Control S. But yeah, you'll have like your folder thing will show up, and then you want to save the file as index.html, as you see here. And now I'm going to hit the live preview. It's opened in the wrong it's opened in the wrong thing. Oh, there's another thing of numbers that I'll have to cover up. Is that too much? I feel like I'm being a bit silly now. We're going to roll with it. There's numbers in the thing, and I don't know if they are maybe something I shouldn't be showing, so I'm covering them. Maybe I'm overreacting. If anyone has used brackets and knows what the numbers in the URL bar, you know what I mean, the search bar, let me know what they are, and if I may be overreacting. But anyway, So you have your index.html file. So there's two different coding program things maybe that we're going to be using. Is HTML, which is the base of what every website is made out of, and CSS, which is basically going to allow us to decorate the HTML. Do I remember what either of those things stand for? No, but it's fine. Now, there's a thing that you start off every HTML file with. I do not remember what it is off the top of my head, so I'm going to search it. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to copy paste this, and then I'm going to walk you through what's happened here. I'm going to get rid of this. That's not important right now. I'm going to pretend that I knew that off the top of my head, but I didn't. It's not very... I'm used to copy pasting entire files and then just changing what's in them. So what these are is we have doctype HTML. I'm going to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it does. I know it declares like this is a HTML file, but every single tutorial I've ever read has this. We're going to roll with it. Then we have HTML. So each of these are called tags. They are called tags, right? I'm sure they're called tags. We're going to... I've never had to use the lingo before, but we're gonna assume they're called tags. Most tags start with like an opening tag and then they have a closing tag. The closing tag will always have a slash in it before the like name of the tag, I guess. I think every HTML file I've ever seen you've got the HTML tags. In between the HTML tags, you have head tags. Head tag has a closing tag. And body tags. Body has a closing tag. Your head tag is where you put anything that doesn't visibly show up on the web page. Like something's visible, like in the head tag. You know how at the top here where I've covered on the tab where it has a lot of websites will have like a little icon and then they'll have the name of the page that you're viewing. That information is in the head tag. There's a lot of other information that goes in the head tag as well, but that's just an example. The body tag is everything visible on the actual page itself. Actually, you know what? Let's start off with the thing up here, so that way I don't have to keep covering it. Right now, because it doesn't have a title, it's literally just got what's in the search bar up in that tab area. So to give your web page the little thing in the tab bar, we're going to give it a title. So we're going to make a title tag. This is in between the head tags. And because I'm using because I'm using brackets, it's completed the closing tag for me. We go title, and let's just call this web page. A little smiley face, if I can type, would be great. And then Control S to save, or I think file save will also work, but I'm using my keyboard because it's easier. There we go, and if I reload the page, which you didn't see just then, but now I can make this shrink back down, maybe? Will it let me? So now you can see up here, it says, here we go, now I'm pointing. Now you can see up here, it says web page smiley face. So that's how you edit that. You can also add in a icon. Again, this isn't really important. I'll add timestamps if this isn't important to you right now. I need an image. So, to help keep everything nice and organized, what I like to do is actually make a new folder. And we're going to call this images. I like to shorten the word images, but you can call this folder literally whatever you want. And in here, I'm going to paste my image here. So I've got this little little dinosaur. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste this, and then I'm going to walk you through, and we're going to edit it, because right now this isn't actually what it should say. So it's a link tag. A link tag, as you can see, doesn't have a closing tag. So this is an example of a tag without a closing tag. We've got link. I don't know what that means, or I don't know what any of this is. The one thing I do know about this is this href. Is that how you pronounce that? I'm going to call it href. Href. I don't know. Now this link in here is what is how we actually find the image that you want to add in. So to get to our image in this folder here, which is shown up, we're going to go href equals quotations, and my folder's called images, so I look for images. Brackets is showing me possibly what I'm searching for, which is images. Then it will show me images / lildinoplush.png. So I click on that, and as you can see up here, it's put our little icon up in there. So again, this stuff is probably important, but I don't know what it is or what it means. I can guess, but I could not tell you exactly why we write it. But that's the code there, and then you just change this link here to find, oh, there we go, to find the image that you're looking for, and then it will show up in this corner here. But that probably isn't what you clicked on this tutorial for. So the actual content of the page, let's go. So I think one of the most common tags that you will probably end up using is the div tag. Again, is it pronounced div or div? I don't know, I'm calling it div. And again, this one has a closing tag, just like all these other ones that we've just used. So the div is basically a box, and it just helps separate content. Now, a div is very generic. When you actually write up a web page, you want to use semantic HTML, which is, or at least as much of it as you possibly can, because it helps with like accessibility, and it also helps keep your page a lot more organized, or your code a lot more organized. It just helps makes things a lot easier to read. So for instance, there are tags like header, there's main, whoopsie, there's nav, you can add a footer. Something to note is, in brackets at least, I'm not sure if this goes for any other program, you can literally type whatever in here, it will add a closing tag. Just because you type something and it closes it off doesn't necessarily mean it's an actual tag. Heads up. There, you can search up like lists of semantic HTML to get the full thing. I don't believe these have anything styled to them normally. You do have to style them yourself, just like you do with the div tags. It just allows people who use, for instance, I believe screen readers will actually be able to use the name of the tags to find content on the page for the person using the screen reader. I think there's also a couple of other reasons that it's good for accessibility, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. Yeah, we're going to get used to using these a bit later, but anything that you can't find a already existing tag for, the div tag is what you want to go with, because it's literally just a box, and we fill out the box however we need. So the div tag or the other tags that I just showed will help divide the page into areas. The actual content of the page, we can, let's maybe put this in our div tag. If I want to write out some text, we have the p tag. This is for paragraphs, so we can say here. And here we go. Now we're starting to actually get something on the page. I'm 3/4 of an hour into recording and we've just got stuff on the page. Let's go. Hopefully when I edit this down it'll be a bit more bearable. But yeah, look, we got some text on the page. You can type, if I actually put another paragraph beneath it, let's just put a key smash in there. Yeah, and it will keep going. Oh my goodness, I'm holding down the space bar. It'll just keep going, and we can add as many of them as we want there. These blue things that show up on the screen, this is only here because we're using brackets. If you were to load up the page without the live preview from brackets, this blue will not be here. The blue's just there to kind of show you how the page is interpreting your code. So this blue space here is actually the margin for the text. So the margin, as you can probably guess, is the space around whatever it is you're working with. So in this case, our paragraphs. So things like paragraphs will actually already have things like margins already set to a default, whereas things like our div here, that blue flash that we just saw, that's the contents of our div, but it doesn't have any margins or any other styling attached to it. You can also make headings. So a heading you can do anywhere from heading 1 to heading 6. Heading 1 is your biggest heading, so let's maybe start with heading 1. And again, it closes the tag off for us. So yeah, we have heading 1, you can go, and then heading 2 is slightly smaller, and it'll keep going down until 6. Yeah, look how tiny that is. They also have thicker margins than paragraphs do, and the text is already defaulted to be a lot larger, and then depending on the size of the heading, it changes the size of the heading. So those are some examples of headings. Let's get rid of those two. Now, this page looks boring. We got some plain text on some white background. So to actually make this look a little bit nicer, this is where CSS comes in. Now, CSS you can apply in, I believe, 3 different ways. The first one is, I think it's called Inline, which is where we actually add the CSS directly to individual tags. The second way we can add CSS is on the page, but in the head, which is what we're going to do for this. So to do this, we're going to, between the head tags, we're going to make a style tag. And then everything between these 2 tags can be CSS, and it will apply to anything that we ask it to on the page. The third way we can add CSS is actually by making a CSS file and then linking it to a HTML file. So all 3 have its benefits. To have a separate CSS file is good if you have pages that are very similar. On the example I showed you before, it had a main CSS file, so that way if I had the home page would be connected to the CSS file. Then there was an updates page that was connected to the same CSS file. And so they all take from the same file, but I don't have to copy paste that same code every time I want to make a page. Having the CSS on the page is good if you only want it to apply to this page, because if you don't have to have it on another page, then you don't really need it external to the page, if that makes sense. And then to have it inline, which I think I've seen some people say is not a good way to go about it. I will use inline CSS if it's just one minor small change that I need to make that will never need to be replicated on any other part of the page. Like if maybe this heading is like just a little bit too far left for my liking, I might edit just this one and add CSS to it. But I've seen some people disagree and say that's not good practice. I don't really know. That's just what I do. But for today, we're going to be working in the same page. But we're going to be working up here. So let's start by, I'm going to go ahead and edit the div. To style the div, we just type div, and then we use these like squiggly brackets or curly brackets or whatever they're called. I don't know the technical terms for any of the brackets. I like to press enter. This is how you'll see most people, at least in my experience, I have seen most people format their CSS like this. And then in here, this is where we style it. So by saying div here, every div on this page will now have whatever style we set here applied to it. Let's say I want to have a blue border, so we go border, and then these, is that colon, I think? The 2 dots, whatever it's called. Say blue 0.4 solid. And then we have a border, and then we like to end each style that we make with a semicolon. That's not a semicolon. There we go. And that means that when we add another style underneath it, it tells the code, this is the end of our border style. We're moving on to a new thing. Let me walk you through some of this. So there are lots of different styles we can make. So we're using border right now. You can do background, there's width, height. You can do border radius, which rounds off, oh, where's my mouse? Rounds off these corners. There's all sorts of things. There's so much more than I just listed off. Again, you can search this if you want a complete list. There's so many. I could not go over all of them. We're just gonna go through them as we come across them. So got border, blue. Now, HTML, or I suppose this is CSS. CSS already has inbuilt colors into it. So you can just say blue or green or pink, and it will pick the default version of that color. There's also like really oddly specific ones, like I think it's like periwinkle blue or something like that. If you want a very specific color, let's say I want to get a color picker. Let's say I still wanted blue, but I want something like this. Here is a hex code. So we've got that little hash symbol followed by a string of numbers and letters. You can also use RGB, or actually I think you might be able to use all of these, like RGB, HSV, CMYK. So I'm going to stick to this hex code here. I've picked the color I want, just copy it, move back over here, and change blue to this, but then we add the hash in front. That's very important, otherwise it won't recognize that you're giving it a color. And then here we have a very dull grayed out blue. 0.4m, this defines the width of the border. Now the M unit, a lot of places will introduce you to the pixels unit. I think it's called pixels. It's like, we do 3, something like this they might show you. I have recently been taught to write your measurements in M or rem. I believe it's because M is resizable, whereas pixels are not, which is good for things like mobile friendliness, and if someone were to, I believe, sometimes zoom on the page, it can help fix issues with zooming. Possibly, don't take my word for it. Again, I'm working with stuff off the top of my head here. I believe there are occasions when using pixels is more appropriate, but since I've been remaking my site, I'm yet to find any reason to use them. And solid, this just defines the pattern of the border. So for instance, we could say dotted, if I can spell dotted, and it actually becomes dotted. Or I think dashed, it's inset, if I could spell it. Inset, there's outset. Anyway, we're gonna go with solid because we're boring, but you can change that pattern to anything. I think those are basically the 3 important pieces of information that you'll want to add to this. Like I said earlier, you can round off the edges, which you can do using border radius. So border dash radius 0.5m. There we go. You can also, if you want to be really tricky, target specific parts of the border. So maybe I want the bottom of this border to be dotted, maybe. You can write border dash bottom and say dashed. It's defaulted back to black here, but we can change the color back to the same hex code, really. The order in which you place this information isn't important. I think there could be some very oddly specific circumstance in which it is, but I'm yet to have that issue. The order in which you place the actual individual styles can be important. Like, for instance, I think if we put border bottom above border here, it will actually cancel it out, because the point of CSS is that it takes information from top to bottom. So right now we've told it, make the bottom border dashed. And then we've told it, make the entire border solid. So it's taken the most recent information, which is we want the border to be solid. And so it's cancelled out our instruction to make it dashed. So it's always important that if something doesn't seem to be showing up correctly, sometimes rearranging your CSS will actually help, because it might just be in the wrong order and you might just have something cancelling out something else. And same thing with border radius. Maybe we want this corner up here to be not round. Border top left radius. There we go. And now that's only made just this top corner square. And all the rest of these corners are all still round. Hello, okay, Editing Flickarity is back again to tell you to get up and have a break. You have been sitting here for like, what, 25 minutes now? Have a stretch, get some water, have a snack or something. You know, do a lap of your room or of your house or something. Pause the video, have a break. So, welcome back to all of you who have come back to the video. I hope you're feeling a bit more refreshed. Honestly, even if you had to leave this for another day, I do not blame you. This video is so long. But I will let you get back to it. Thank you for watching this far in, and enjoy the rest of the tutorial. Now, maybe I don't want this to take up the entire width of the page. Maybe I just want it to be smaller. Now, I've not actually tried this before in this way. So we're gonna experiment here a little. If I go width, and this space here doesn't mean anything. I've just put a space there because I can. Okay, so if we go width, max content. There we go, that does work. Width max content, which means that the width of this div will only be as wide as the maximum width of the content that it contains. So in this case, that's the text, so it takes the width of the text. Maybe I want this in the middle of my page. What's that? Margin left auto. And then we add margin right auto, and that will center it. There are a couple other ways to center things, like I believe some people still use, we have a, down in the body, we actually have a tag called the center tag. However, it's recommended that you don't use it because it's considered a style, and therefore they were like, we shouldn't be putting style in HTML. That's what CSS is for. So center tags in my experience still work, but I have been told to not use them. So if you want to center something, and if it will allow you, I've had some issues with this in the past, margin left auto, margin right auto will center something for you. Now, the text is quite close to the edge of the borders. To fix that, we can add padding. Let's make that 1 in. And you can see now there's space in here to give, your text some breathing space. So your border, margin, and padding is going to be used quite a lot because that helps organize where your divs are on the page. Now, it's still a very blank screen here. Maybe you want some color. Now, there's a couple things we can do. If we just want a plain old color, we can do, to target the entire screen, you go HTML, which is targeting this tag through to this tag. Make our squiggly brackets. We go background. I can't spell still. Go background color, I suppose. See, here's some examples of some of the oddly specific colors that it will provide you with, like, default. Let's be boring. Let's make it beige. That's actually quite ugly. Let's make it, what's this one? It's like a light blue. You could do something like this, or if you wanted to be a bit more decorative, I suppose. As you saw on the example at the start, the background actually was made up of images. A very common thing is to use like tiled images. So let me see if I have one saved already. And again, all we're doing is coming into our file here. We go into our images and we save our image here. And we can actually go background, that URL, and we have a round brackets, and again it'll bring up a little thing here. We want images slash and then the name of your folder, or the name of wherever you've kept your image that you want to use. And that will add the image to the background and then it will repeat it. So this image is actually, let me show you, it's not the background, like it's not this entire space here. It's actually just this one square, and what the web page has done with that is it's taken it and then it's repeated it. And so you get, if you pick the right image, it will like seamlessly kind of blend and you won't be able to see where the spaces are. There's lots of different ways you can change the background image and make it so it repeats differently, also that way it doesn't repeat. I think in fact we could probably go background repeat, I believe is a thing. Yeah, background repeat, no repeat. And see, it's just this one tile, which I believe I got this off of a Tumblr blog. There was a massive graphics horde somewhere. Again, I will, if I remember, I will link it in the description. So there's this one tile, and all it's done is it's defaulted to repeat it across the page. So that's how you might want to do the background. And as you can see, it's a GIF as well. So you can add GIFs for the background, give a bit of movement, just be mindful. Be mindful with all of your graphics. If you want to make sure that people are actually able to view your site, you want it to be not too hard on the eyes, not too much movement, or the movement that does exist is slow. Hopefully not too distracting. My site is a little bit messy and distracting, I will admit. But the less movement you can have on a page, the easier it is for more people to come and see your site. So it's very important to keep in mind. And you'll notice now that we've added this background, like our color contrast here is a bit is a bit bad. This text is not the right color at all. So we can actually change that. I want to target all the text. So all the text on this screen, which is going to include this, we can target the HTML for. So I can go color. If I can spell, it takes the American spelling, unfortunately, and I do not typically spell with American spelling. Color targets specifically text. It doesn't target anything else on the page. So if you want to target text, you're looking for color. It's not like text color or anything in specific, just color. And to make it readable, let's make it white. You know, this is still a bit hard to see. Maybe we'll make the background of the div background. I believe you should be able to just target background and it should work. So we go background. Let's make this dark blue, I think. Oh, that's a bit ugly. Let's maybe get our own dark blue. So remember to add the hash if it doesn't already, and then paste that in. That's a bit more readable. And so yeah, now we have our text, which is a lot more readable. Maybe you don't like the color. Not the color. Maybe you don't like the font is what I meant to say. We can change. I'm going to go font family. I really like to use MSUI Gothic. You can also import your own fonts if you want. That's a whole other thing that I can go about in another video if you wish. Another thing, the default fonts, it actually has, here we have cursive, fantasy, monospace, sans serif, and serif. It's always good to have one of these as a backup, just in case your fonts don't load correctly or the browser that the person is viewing on maybe doesn't support it or something along those lines. They're very, like, here we go, cursive is, that's literally just Comic Sans. So I'm going to go back to my MSUI Gothic, and then to add your backup font, you do a comma, and then you add what you want your backup font to be. So I like mine to be sans serif. And so what happens is if this first font doesn't load, it'll take the second font. If the second font doesn't load, it will just keep going down the line. So you can add as many fonts as you want there. But it's always best to have one of those default fonts in just to make sure. So I've shown you how to target very general things like the HTML, the div. What if you have two of one thing? So for instance, we have 2 paragraphs. What if I want to style this one differently from this one? What we can do there is we give them a class. Now you can give them, I believe you can give them a class or an ID. Just for good habit, I'm going to show you how to use class. So what we do is we come here, we go into this first tag of whatever you're trying to target. In this case, it's our paragraph tag, so our P tag. Give a space. Then we're going to type class equals quotations, and then you name it whatever you want. So I'm going to name this one, let's name this one 1. Now, depending on exactly what you're trying to do, you might want to name the second one as well, or you might not need to. You might just need to target just this. Now, to target just this paragraph that we've now given a class, we come back up here into our style. We now add dot or period or whatever you call this symbol, a full stop or whatever, dot 1 or whatever you called your class, and just squiggly brackets. And now this will only target anything that has the class 1. You can add that same class to multiple items, I think. I think that might be the difference. I think ID you can only add to one item, whereas classes you can add to multiple items. And I don't know, I want to make this paragraph, maybe I want to align it differently. So we go text-align, and I want it to be center. And see, it's now only targeted that first paragraph and not the second. Whereas if I were to have written this as P instead of 1, it will target both paragraphs. Now, I believe there's probably a couple other things that I could teach. Or maybe, there we go, there's something we can do. Maybe you want to add an image. Let's add an image. Now, I already have this dinosaur loaded in, so I'm going to use that same dinosaur image again. To add an image, we want to be anywhere in our body tag, depending on where you want the image to load in. So if I want the image to load in out here, I probably want to keep it in the body tag, but not in the div tag. If I want it in the div, I probably want to put it directly into the div tag, and then depending on where in the tag I want it, I will change where the image goes. Maybe I want it below all of the text. So beneath the text, beneath our P tags, we want to add a tag. It's image tag, which is just img. This tag does not have a closing tag. So if I were to close it off now, it doesn't create a closing tag for us. It doesn't have the second tag with the slash. To choose what image, within that image tag, we go space, we go source, which is src. Source equals quotations. Then we again find the image that we want. So in this case, I'm going to go look for my little dinosaur image. And as we can see, I've now got the dinosaur in here. We can change this up a few ways. Maybe it's a bit too big. Now there's, again, like I said before, there's a couple ways we can add CSS. We can go up here and we can go image or the img, target the image tag, and then go with 4M, and that will make it tinier. So now we have this. Always good practice to add alt text. So we can do alt equals quotations, again inside of this image tag. If it's decorative, you just add the alt tag with the quotations and then leave it blank, I believe. But if it's important for someone who has low vision and they use a screen reader maybe, the screen reader will be able to read the alt text to them. So if it's important information in your image, it's good to add that alt text and describe what's actually in the image. So we could say little green dinosaur flesh. So yeah, that's how we add that in. Or if we want to do inline styling like I was talking about before, we can get rid of this. Because maybe I'm just really in a rush to just like quickly fix up this thing. I can't be bothered going up to the top and adding it to my style tags. It's just this one little quick thing that I need to fix up. Inside your tag that you're trying to style, in this case our image tag, and go style equals quotations, and then it's basically the same thing that you would put up the top, except you don't have to target it with the name and the squiggly brackets. You put the style information in. So we go width, what did I say, 4M? Yeah. And then end it with a semicolon. Alternatively, again, for things like width, you don't actually need the style tag at all. You can just go width inside the image tag, width equals quotations 4M. Or not? Okay, we've made it unbelievably small. No, that's still small. 100M. There we go. Yeah, I don't exactly understand how the units translate over. Yeah, you can add that in however you wish and then just fiddle around with it until it works how you want. And probably not the most correct way to go about it, but that certainly worked for me, so. And really, I think that's basically it for what I want to teach in this episode. There is so much more I could talk about. But this video is going to get very long, and I did want to just introduce very basic. Whoa, that my emphasis there was a bit all over the place, wasn't it? Just want to teach some very basic HTML, CSS. Oh my goodness, I have been filming for an hour and a half now, so very basic HTML, CSS. I definitely plan to come back and make more episodes. How long that's going to take, I'm not sure. We'll see. I think the next tutorial I want to make is a very basic layout, because that was certainly something that I struggled with majorly when I first started. And yeah, there's definitely lots of other stuff that I've missed that would be considered quite basic. And yeah, if you wanted to use semantic HTML. If we were to assume this was the main content of the page, these div tags, we actually want to change to main tags, you know, depending on exactly what it is. You can see we've broken it because the CSS is targeting div, but we can just change that to main, and that'll fix that, you know, or whatever part of your site that is, just change the code to represent that. And if you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments, and I'll either answer them directly in the comments, or I will hopefully bring them up in the next video that I'm hopefully going to make. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful, and I really hope if anyone who watches this video actually makes a website, or even if you own a website already and you're just popping in to see what's going on, let me know what it is. I really love seeing other people's personal websites. I'll link mine as well. Thank you for watching. And I hopefully I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye! I can't hit the stop record button because I'm on the wrong screen.